Hello and welcome back to the podcast. This is season 2, episode 4, and in this episode we're going to talk about having a training focus. And once again, I am joined by Adam Kent. Hello. Adam. You all right, mate?
I'm all
welcome
good,
back.
Mate. Thank you very much.
Adam Kent, that seems to change something every week to keep people guessing. This week he is without a beard.
Yeah, I've got to stay one step ahead. You know what I mean?
One step ahead. You got a bit rogue there. But every time I see you tend to change something quite extreme.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there is something like deep in my psyche that's wrong about me, but I do like extreme changes. So who knows? Next week you'll probably see me with a shaved head.
I think I look like this all year round. You
haven't changed
monthly.
In like over 10 years. I'm seasonal.
Exactly. Yeah, very much. Right, well, welcome back, Adam. So this week we're going to talk about having a training focus. So last week we talked about having the motivation to train, and I think you summed that up by having motivation's not the best word to use. Sometimes it just comes down to discipline.
Yes.
But with like being disciplined and having a motivation to train, what goes well with that is actually setting a decent goal that you can keep to.
Definitely.
And sometimes people don't like using the word goals. They might see it as a bit cheesy. So like what I try to talk to people in is actually the word of having a training focus. And what I mean by that is having training metrics and stuff to measure your performance. So I wanted to quickly talk to you about dive in a bit about programming, how you would goal set with a client and what you would kind of look to do, how you would test a client, and then I'll talk about how I would test a client, what I do in my programs, and then we just give some people some ideas of what we mean by training metrics and where to start and where to measure.
Okay, cool.
Sounds good?
Yeah, it always sounds good, mate. Always sounds good. Do you want me to kick off then?
Yeah, go on in.
Yeah, cool. I'll just to kind of touch on some of the things that you've mentioned there leading up to that. Is setting goals with clients is I've found it quite difficult in the past because a lot of the times when I sit down with people in a consultation, I will have very vague goals to work with. So this will probably sound very familiar to you and any other trainer that's listening to this. Is that you'll sit down and you'll say, hey, cool, welcome, you'll get all the fluff out of the way and just really why you're here, what do you need my help for? And it will come up with something like, I just want to get fit, I want to do something to change my life, and I feel that this is gonna, seeing you somehow gonna accomplish this. And you're like, right, okay, so you kind of got this word in front of you. It's like fit. Like, I just want to be fit, or I want to lose some weight, or something like that. And you're like, okay, cool, awesome. So and you kind of think, so what's brought this on then? And you're kind of trying to really pick out the what's, the whys, and the hows, and you are trying to get into a more specific area of fitness as well. So one of the things that I would say to a lot of people that are maybe starting out or thinking about going back to the gym is when you're out the bat, you don't have to be overly specific. One of the things I'll just say is obviously having the drive initially to go, right, okay, obviously I'd need to make a change somewhere. But once you've kind of honed in kind of what you think that might be, whether that's I want to improve a level of fitness, or I want to feel healthy, or I want to lose some weight, it's really trying to just chip it down and funnel it. And one of the things that we'll use is probably one of the things you get taught on day one as a PT is how to set what's called a SMART goal. So being specific, making sure it's measurable, which is obviously I know you're big on making sure that you can actually measure these things. Is it achievable? Is it realistic? And what's the kind of time constraints about it? So by that, what I mean is okay, cool, you want to be fit, but what does fit really mean? It's very subjective. It's very much based on opinion. So we can both look at different athletes in different sports. We could look at some guy that's just going down the road and go, yeah, he looks like he works out. He's in good shape for maybe his age and demographic and things like that. And go, yeah, cool, he's fit. Is he as fit as, say, like Mo Farah? Maybe not. So there's obviously very different metrics there.
So because what I get a lot, well, everybody gets a lot, is as soon as you start training, people say, well, what's a good, let's say you're lifting weights, what's a good bench press?
Yeah.
What's a good deadlift? What's a good 5K time? And you're like, well, and for me, my answer is always like, it doesn't really matter. What matters is what you can do.
Yeah.
and then if you improve that, then that's good for you. Like what's a good 5k time? Well, Mo Farah can run it probably in about 13 minutes. You know, is that even relevant or useful information to you? Probably not. What's more useful is if you run, say, like a 30-minute 5k time, is that good? Well, it's good for you, but if you now improve that to 28 minutes, now that's your new good time. That's your new benchmark you've set yourself.
I do like using those as kind of like ideas for people and kind of to maybe kind of hone into where they're at with it sometimes. Because how many times have you said, like, you know, oh, it normally like it's you ask them to do a test. This is what when people ask that question, it's like, oh, what should I aim for? Like say like a press up test, and you'll say to them like, okay, I just want you to do as many press ups as you can, and like we're going to give you 2 minutes, and I might put a limit on it. So say if you do more than this, then you can stop. Normally I use the army or I use the marine test for these kind of like more body weight exercises, and they'll say they'll ask that question like, how many's good, what's a good number, and you're like, don't worry about what's a good number. All I want you to do is as many as you physically can do. And I do find that once you set them a number in their head, they'll immediately anchor a number for themselves. And by that what I mean is you'll see this a lot as well, is when you do these tests with people put a number in their head that they will check out at. So they'll do like, right, I'm going to do push-ups. If I can do 20, then cool. And then they'll do 20 and then they'll stop. And then you'll be like, well, why did you stop? You look great. You look like you could probably do a lot more than that. And they're just like, well, you know, and they'll explain that. And it's like, yeah, but the test was to see how many you can do to failure. You know what I mean? You would have set that parameter to that. Do as many as you can, like, you know, good form, chest to floor, arms extended. And when you cannot physically do any more, that's when the test ends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you'll see them just tap, like, you know, literally tap out, and it's like, yeah, cool, no, I got there. And you're like, I don't know when now that I'm testing you if this is your limit. You know what I mean? So it kind of skews the data slightly.
And it could work the other way as well. Like if you say this is the target and they're getting nowhere near that and they know they can't, then that could even put them off even finishing it because they just hit this wall. Yeah. So like I'm going to put this on a bit of perspective and relate it back to me, and then I think we should talk about how you do testing, where to start, and how you can, and like how geeky you can go with it, and like how geeky you don't really need to be just to quickly get these little metrics in. So I've took up cycling. That seems to be my new thing. All things spandex is what I'm into at the moment.
And good photos of you on your bike there, mate.
Oh yeah. So like I started, I mean, last February 2020, I said I wanted to improve my cycling. Not actually on the road. I just wanted to start getting some watt bike sessions in my life. And a test you can do on a bike is an FTP test, your functional threshold power. And I was like, okay, well, let's do that and just see where I'm at. And I did 211 watts. So it's a 20-minute test, and that gives you an FTP number. So you go as hard as you can for 20 minutes. And all your cycling performance is based off that. So I did an FTP test and I got 211 watts.
Right.
And I was like, okay, cool. And then I did one session, and then on the watt bike the week after, and then the gym shut because COVID happened. And then I was like, okay, so 211 watts. In May, I bought a bike because we was talking about doing London O'Brien. So I bought a bike off eBay and I just started cycling, started getting into it throughout the summer. And then as soon as it hit September, I was like really into it. It was like taking over my life. And I was like, okay, let's carry on cycling. I got the turbo trainer, my Wahoo kicker, and then I just really got into it. And I've just redone a FTP test in February. I've just done where I'm at. And it's 280 watts.
Oh, nice.
So within like a year of doing that test, just you know, I did retest it in October and I jumped somewhere in the middle, and then now I've retested it a year later. I'm at 280 watts. So what that means is I've made a significant improvement in my power output within that year of doing fitness.
Yeah.
And a few weeks ago, you know, I mean, I cycled with my best mate Sam, you know, Matty's there as well, and those guys can put out some bigger watts than me, especially Sam. He puts out some dirty numbers, and I can always feel like cool.
Yeah, but
you know,
his isn't his background is like adventure training, isn't it? He's and he does all these triathlons and jazz.
Yeah, he's at a pretty decent level, and but like what I'm getting at is that I can look at Sam's numbers and not really be there and think like, oh right, he's just like absolutely tanking me. But that doesn't matter because Sam's been training longer than me. It's his sport, you know, it's what he dedicates everything to. But what I can actually look back and reflect on is actually, well, I was at 211. I'm now at 280. I'm making a huge improvement. Numbers do not lie. And that's the second wind that you can sometimes, and that's the second wind I've got to like really want to carry on. Yeah. And you talked about, I remember last week you talked about within staying motivated, sometimes you need to see results. Once you see results, you're like, oh right, this is working. Once you get results, and a lot of times people give up fitness too soon because they might try something for a week, 2 weeks, a month, and they might not be where they want to be instantly, and then they just chuck it, they just pull it in the chuck it down the pan. And we see that most in January when people start in January, they want to take over the world. 3 weeks in, what's known as Blue Monday, everybody quits. And that happens all the time because they're not seeing the results straight away, because they're chasing results they're not really measuring. They're chasing maybe aesthetic goals of I want to look this way. And you know, we've been there. People pick up a men's health magazine and go, I want to look like this cover model in 4 weeks, and you're like, whoa. And that's their goal. Yeah, go on.
No, I was just going to jump, because the thing is that I feel you're kind of touching on, like, kind of just all like brushing, not you're deliberately brushing, but it's the idea of comparison. And I feel a lot of people do this, and why they can get sort of deflected from their goals is because they will compare themselves. It's only natural, it's very human to do that, because you want to use something as a barometer, as a measure, and people will look for the kind of in the gym kind of aspect. So you'll go in, you'll see like really fit people, you'll see people that have like really dedicated themselves to maybe a certain look or a certain lifestyle, and somebody will come in and do a couple of weeks of a workout and almost expect immediate results, and they'll look at something like a Men's Health cover magazine, and they'll look at that guy on the cover and be like, hey, I want to look like that in 4 weeks. And obviously it's quite unrealistic, and as a coach and a trainer, that's something that obviously we're there to help and guide and explain, and sort of, you know, allow people to make these kind of judgments themselves. But because people are, and I don't want to come off in a jerk way, but because people aren't educated enough about fitness, they will hone into these people, and they'll be like, oh, okay, I want to look like that guy. But they don't realise that this guy's been training for the last 15, 10, more than maybe half their life, and that's their job, full-time job, to look like that. And not only is that guy,
and that's their Everest, right? That's their pinnacle. That's like they've made it. They've made it to the cover of Men's Health magazine, which would have been their lifetime goal.
That's the survivorship bias. You don't see the hundred or the thousands of people that have tried to do this. And that guy, not only is he in top physical shape, he is at the point where he's also changed his training going into that photo shoot. You know, where he's been dehydrating, and probably actually, I've been at those points. And you absolutely hate life, so you're actually at your most unhealthiest when you're like that, because you're just dehydrated, tired, fatigued, and again it's because things are in spotlight. So say for example yourself, you're talking about riding with Sam, and this is like, it's so easy to compare to somebody who's obviously someone that's better, and it's not a bad thing to be inspired by people, to look at that and go, hey, I would like to be there. But it's understanding the time frame and the effort, and that's kind of where we spoke about the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's not understanding the level of training that's required to be at a certain point in someone's career or skill. And I find with the goal setting, it was one of the hardest things for people to kind of really actually get down, because really there should be some sort of short focus and some long-term focuses. So yes, the long-term focus is potentially to look like that. We can get you to look like, or get you as close to you looking like that guy. But in the here and now, and the next couple of weeks, this is what we actually need to focus on for you to start this journey.
Yeah, And so where I want this conversation to go is like reflecting back to that with like me. So I can look. There's two mindsets I can be in. I can look at someone like Sam and be like, oh, he is just tanking me on this run, on this bike ride. He is actually pulling away. Or I can look at it as, right, last year I was at 210, 211. Now I'm at 280. My new goal is to set a 300 FTP target. Let's work my ass off to get that, because that's the jumps I can measure. But that's like a little pick-me-up. That's morale that is working. All that hard work I put in is working. And if I was racing myself last year... I've actually left that bloke behind. Now that is a good, and that's from a trainer's point of view. That's from me just getting into cycling within the last year. So then let's replace, but I do that with every aspect of my training. And what I try to get people to do is talk about metrics and numbers, because numbers don't lie. And once you see results, you will get a second win and you'll fall in love with training. Yeah. So let's talk about testing and what people can do. So, we get a goal. I want to get a bit stronger. Well, what does strong mean? So in the gym, you can test strength by doing compound moves, such as, there's two ways to test strength. There's absolute strength, and then there's relevant strength. So when you test in strength workouts, you can test strength by doing compound moves, like
like the big three, like
a squatting pattern, a deadlift pattern, a bench press, and a overhead press. So you do this with barbell, and you can test this as a 1 rep max, 3 rep max, 5 rep max. And what that means is, like for people listening, so 5 rep max is how many. If you're doing bench press, how heavy can you go to lift for 5 reps? Yeah. So I put 5 rep max test in for people that are just starting out in the gym, that have not really got much experience with lifting in general. That's a goal that they can build up to do like a 5 rep max. 1 rep max testing is, unless you've done it before, you shouldn't really just jump into 1 rep max testing. It's a skilled movement, because you need to be able to lift heavy loads. You need to be able to move well. You need to have perfect form under heavy loads, and it's a huge skill, both physically and mentally, to perform a true 1 rep max. For me, I like to put people through 3 rep max testing. So if you're someone that wants to improve so let's say I get a new client, they want to improve their strength, they've been training for a while, they've squatted and benched before, I might test their 3 rep max. And the reason I do 3 is that when a client loads up, say, a back squat, I know he can do at least 1. We've chose a weight. We've chose a weight he's telling me he can do 3 on. So we were like, okay, well, you can do at least 1. After you do 2, you can give me the nod saying you feel good. And if you don't feel good, you can pull it back. And you go, right, that's your 2 rep max. But 3, you can just about go to failure in like the safe capacity. So I like to test 3 rep maxes. Are you the same? 1, 3, and 5?
Well, I'll generally stick to the 3 and 5 for strength testing, and there's quite a few different tests that I will use. Probably, when I sit down and do these consultations, I'll generally after like 10 minutes. Most, like when I was getting trained, back in the day, this is almost going back 10 years ago. People are telling you consultations should take like an hour or something like that, and you're like, oh, I ain't got time for that. I need to get these people in, not waste their time, find out exactly who they are and what they want. So after and saying that, after about 10 minutes, you can generally get a vibe what this person actually wants, and it doesn't mean that obviously that's where the consultation ends. It's because you'll then take them through into wherever it is that you do your testing, and the questions just still keep rolling in. But one of the things that I want to look for a lot of times is are these people actually capable of doing these things that they want to do? For big thing I always start off with is actually making sure that they can move properly. So lots of mobility tests and things like that. And once I've kind of find that they've screened them, like make sure that there's not any injuries. One of the things I do find sometimes, which I think you've had before, is like you'll ask somebody like a medical question. You say, hey, have you got any injuries that maybe I should know about, or any conditions? And they're like, no, it's all good, we're fine. And you take them in and you get them to do a squat test or something like that, and you're like, hey, I can see that maybe you're like buckling in, you're like internally rotating or something like that here and there, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, I broke my leg like 2 years ago, and my ankle, I've got pins in my ankles or something like that. You're like, oh right, okay, that's the kind of stuff that you should have maybe told me. Like,
you see this questionnaire with all these tick boxes. One of them says, have you done this before? You meant to click yes, yeah.
Yeah, I've had it before with people where I've taken them up for treadmills and they want to do like some sort of marathon, and I'll ask them straight up, like, have you got any kind of medical conditions that might prevent you from doing cardiovascular work? And they're like, no. And then I'll have them upstairs and they'll whip out their asthma inhaler and put it on the treadmill. And you're like, hang on, what's that for?
Yeah. But no, so what I'm not saying like this is day one, week one of a consultation. What I'm saying is just like a way to like measure like your strength comparison. So so like, that's how you do strength.
Doing the 3 to 5s,
yeah,
like the big compound movements and body weight movements if I need to.
And it doesn't matter really how sing you are. You should know eventually once you start training, you should get to know these numbers and then focus on these numbers. So then you've got the strength testing that way, but you also got like body weight testing. So body weight testing can be push-ups, plank holds, pull-ups, chin-ups, dips. And with body weight testing, I like to do volume. I like to do a max effort set.
Endurance.
So one set, as many reps as possible. So let's say on dips, could you do a 1 rep max, a 3 rep max, 5 rep max on dips where you have a belt on and you load weights?
Probably
yes, you can.
Yeah,
but
it's not the healthiest way of setting out a body weight movement. Yeah.
I like to always put everything risk to reward ratio.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the risk of injury to this person worth the reward of finding out what their 3 rep max dip is? Not really.
Yeah.
If there's someone that can do 20 or more dips, then they probably don't need to test dips anymore. They're already too strong.
That would tell you anyway. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, cool. You can do some weighted dips, but if I wanted to get like a good metric on your press, I would get you on the bench where you're a lot more supported.
Yeah. So on body weight movements, so the same with pull-ups. You know, you're going to put a belt on and jump up and do a weight pull-up. Well, you can, but then it's dangerous to get down. I just think try to do just a max effort set. So I tend to do strength testing, a 1, 3 or 5 rep max on barbell moves, and then on body weight moves, that's when I do max reps. And then once you get those tests done once, you know, you've got a measure to go off of the rest of your life. You can even kind of, you know, you can then go up. You know, well, the plan is to go up. You know, if you want to get stronger, then increase the strength. If you want to get, let's say you could do 3 pull-ups, and your goal is, I really want to do a set of 6. And then once you get 6 pull-ups, you then want to do a set of 10, and you kind of grow that way. But also, once you know these numbers, and you can track your progression that way, once you know these numbers, you can also use them to get back to where you were. So things happen in life. You might even have an injury, and let's say you've had a collision, rugby collision. You've hurt your shoulder. You know, you can't. You've had to take 2 months out or whatever off upper body work. Then you go back. You're like, well, let's see where my bench is at. Let's see where my pull-ups are at. Oh, God, I'm way off where I was. Well, your next goal is to get back to where you were, and then that's a win, because that's a recovery. You've had you've gone into the gym after an injury. You've then prehabbed and rehabbed yourself back, and now you're back up to full strength for where you were. That's like a good little win, and that's the importance of tracking. You can either do it to constantly see your growth, and then if you have a setback, you can get back to your peak, which is another win. So that's like gym work you can test. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in the tracking aspect, as you said, because obviously, you know, a lot of people will put the responsibility on the trainer or the coach to track these things. But one of the best things actually, I remember obviously when we were working together. Well, actually, I think just after you left, you gave me a book, which is a book that
the training logs,
and it was really helpful because it was the first time I actually started really writing and tracking stuff down, and I'd never seen so much improvement in my own training by being able to actually see what I had done the previous session, and also as well because I would have ideas of what I wanted to do in the gym, and I would have my goals, you know, because I was very much into like bro splits, you know. I was like Monday international chest day, Tuesday back, Wednesday legs, Thursday shoulders, and then Fridays maybe a bit chest of arms. And then depending on what I wanted to do on, you know, like on Saturday and Sunday, main cardio, or you know, most likely days off. And then and the one thing is that I would rock into the gym and I would go to the weights area and I would be like, right, it's Monday, it's chest day, load up the bench. How much did I do last week? And then like I'll remember like a vague, you know, kind of, oh yeah, it was actually a really good session, and I think I did this, and then I'll load on the weights, and then somehow it will seem harder. And you'll never actually be too sure what's happened. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, have I put on more weight than I did last week? Did I actually flunk last week, and I'm just like somehow warped my own reality to think that I actually had a really good sesh. And once I actually start having the numbers in front of me and go, oh, actually, yeah, I only did lift this amount of weight, but now I can actually add on to that and go, right, this is what I should be adding on this week. Okay, cool, I've hit that, and it's actually quite easy. Right, I can now progress, and you can see that that uptick in performance, and it's something really inspiring, and it really got me hooked more into that style of training, just being able to take that break. And obviously it looks super nerdy, like you're you lifting tin and then suddenly you're like darting back up on the bench and writing it all down, but I'd rather be the most jack nerd in the gym.
well what you actually what we're actually talking about now is just progressive overload, right?
Yeah.
And so let's say you're benching 60 kilos for 5 reps. Next week you go back, you've got 2 options. You either go 65 kilos for 5 reps, or you keep it at 60 kilos and you do 6 reps. Next week after, 60 kilos, you do 7 reps. 60 kilos, you do 8 reps. So every week you're increasing the volume. Or you kind of go, I'm going to do 65 for 5 or 70 for 5 and creep up that way. So like that's just progressive overload, and that comes from the first S&C program, which is Milo of Croton. Do you know that story? Yeah. So the Greek wrestler picks up a baby calf, and he puts on his back. He walks up this hill, walks down. The next day he comes up, picks up the calf, walks up the hill, comes down. Next day, and he keeps doing that until the calf grows into this big, massive ball, and he can just pull it on his back, carry it up the hill, carry it down. So the hill hasn't changed, the distance hasn't changed, the time he's doing it hasn't changed. And what's changed is that calf has grew tiny bit by tiny bit every day. So he hasn't jumped big weights. He's just made tiny gains. As the calves grew, he's been carrying up this hill. He's grew with it, and he's made those tiny gains, which has added up, and then he's a massive Greek wrestler. If you don't believe me, Google it.
My calves could grow like that.
So that's how that's a Milo of Croton story. But that's essentially what it is, and that's just progressive overload. So then what we talk about now is that's going into how to write a program, which we could probably say that for another day.
Yeah.
But what then you do is just test what training's been working.
Yeah.
You know, and then that's when the strength testing or endurance bodyweight testing comes in. So, do you hear a noise? Is that you?
Yeah, that's my laptop trying to take off.
All right.
Yeah, so get this bird in the air. Right.
Yeah. I was like, oh no, what's going on? Something's overheating. Yeah, right, so that's testing strength and testing body weight. Then you got other testing you can do, and this is all about set yourself fitness goals, right? And give yourself a training focus. If you're someone that likes to run, then you should 100% be using Strava, and you should be tracking what your 1 mile time is, what your 3K time is, your 500 meter time, so your 5K time, your 10K time, half marathon. You start tracking these numbers. That's right, Adam. I can block out that sound later. I can remove humming later.
That's good.
So if you're someone that likes to run, you should you should go do a 5K test. If you regularly do 5Ks, you should have a time that your best 5K is done in, and then set yourself a goal in 6 weeks' time or something to then redo that 5K. That's like a good performance goal. If you're someone who likes to row, 500 meters, 1K, 2K, 5K, all the distances you test in rowing. And once you've got all these scores down, you can then go, right, I want to improve my 500 meter time this month. So you just work on 500 meter intervals, then you do another test. All right, now I want to improve my 5K. Right, let's do some endurance work, do your test. In cycling, we do FTP. So if you're someone that does spinning, because you used to teach spin a little bit, didn't you?
I did. I've got some good stories about spin.
So if you're someone who likes to spin, then you should do, instead of just going to spin to get a sweat on, to kind of all right, if it's as long as I'm sweating, I'm getting fit. Well, why don't you do an FTP test, like a 20-minute bike test on a watt bike, then go to spin, have the community, have some fun in the spin room. Then when you redo the FTP test, you'd improve, and that will give you like a second wind of, this is working, this training is working. Yeah, so that's like how you would do some testing. And if you set yourself training focuses of, okay, what I'm going to do is pick up, like, this is what I'm going to focus on for this period of time. You'll get results, and that results will work with you, will keep you motivated, right?
Yeah.
Are you with me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah. I know you're focusing on your burning laptop at the moment, but it's fine.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's smoke coming out the side, but it's all good.
It's fine, dude. So the point of this conversation is, right, how do you set yourself better fitness goals? So you've got the target of looking like a Men's Health magazine. Well, first of all, let's kind of, on the way to looking like a Men's Health cover model, set yourself some performance measured goals, and that will help keep you motivated.
Yeah.
Have you got any? I think that's the best way to sum that up, yeah? Right. So this conversation is going to go on to next week's episode, which is about managing injuries. So it's, that when you put these ideas together, it was like, right, motivation to train, leading on to setting better and just giving yourself more of a training focus to kind of keep you motivated. And then we're going to talk next week about what happens when you get a setback of getting an injury, picking up a niggle, because that happens. Or some people get into the gym because they are carrying an injury and they need to rehab themselves back, and that's how they start their gym journey. So next week, this conversation is going to go quite well into that, and that will go back into programming again and putting a structure in the training and why that's important. Right, have you got any closing thoughts, mate?
Yeah, just some, if I was to give like a top 3 bit on what we just kind of gone over through loads of things. Number 1, it can be anything. Honestly, if anything motivates you to step into the gym to get you going, awesome. But then, make sure you don't shoot yourself in the foot. Try and break that goal down. If you want to lose weight, cool, try and figure out actually how much weight you can lose in a week or 2 of training, and then see maybe that's your unit of measure. It's like, oh, okay, well, I hit the gym for 2 weeks and I lost a kilogram. Cool, that's your time frame. So if you want to lose 5 kilograms now, that's going to take you 10 to 20 weeks or however long, up and down. So things like that, it helps in a way to think like that, to just be like, right, well, if you set yourself a goal, you need to be able to make it measurable. You need to be able to see if you can actually stick to that. Obviously, that's the sort of motivational side of things. But if you can't, track that and write it down, you'll never know if you're progressing, and that will instantly, for a lot of people, that'll shrug them off their journey, their goal, because they'll just feel that they're not making any gains, any momentum towards their goal. And just because you do get blown off track, we've said this before, things happen, things like getting away, and what's really good is when you do get back in the gym, you do get back into a really solid routine, that you can actually reflect and look back at training log and go, oh, okay, well, that's where I stopped, and this is where I could potentially, in brackets, start again. But, obviously you'd come in under that and then work your way back up to it. So, set your goals, make it measurable, make sure you write it down.
Yeah, good tips. Right, so next week we're going to talk about season 2, episode 5 is going to be about managing injuries. One little plug from me is the gyms are opening on the 12th of April.
Yep.
So whatever the date is today, Wednesday something, we got another week, and then the gyms open on the 12th of April. If you're someone that's going to be going back to the gym and you currently do not have a training program, well, if you go to Virgin Active in Clapham Common, then go speak to Adam Kent over there.
Yeah.
But if you wanted like an online training program to follow, I've got the Fit in the 30s program, that'll be in a link below. Or if you wanted tailored coaching, then please feel free to reach out and I'll write you a program to go back to the gym with on the 12th of April. Just do not leave it to the last minute to ask me for a program. I'll be programming all next week because I've got loads of people starting on that Monday 12th. So do not leave it to the last minute to buy a program, because it takes me ages to put them together, and we need to have a chat, and we need to set some goals like we said here. We need to look at your training metrics. What is your focus? We need to kind of go through your lifestyle questionnaire and see where you're starting and where you want to go. And all that takes a little bit of time to do. If you're thinking about getting a program or you want a bit of help with your training, then reach out this week. Just give me some time. Don't expect me to write it in. Don't expect it ready for the next day. It does take me a bit of time to put these together.
Awesome.
Okay. Do you want to plug your podcast like you do every week?
Oh yeah, if you let me.
Okay.
Yeah, if you like hearing the sound of my voice, but you hate hearing me talk about fitness, and you want to hear me talk about movies and general stuff like that, I do a podcast with a fellow friend of mine called Craig, screenwriter, very notable award-winning screenwriter, I might say. And we get together and we release a podcast every Tuesday about guilty pleasures that we've grown up and watched, and we review, debate them, and break down the sort of behind the scenes of the production. We're on all the major podcasts hosting sites. We're on Spotify, Google, and Apple. And if you want to check us out on social media, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Just look up Adam Craig's Guilty Pleasure Cinema. I'm pretty sure you can find us.
You're everywhere. And of course, it's always in the link below. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed to these channels, make sure you do, because you just get a heads up whenever I post something new, and it supports the channel. Right, thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. See everyone next week. Thanks, Adam.
No worries, mate. Bye.